And we are back with game two of TTAC16's finals between Akiyama and Turdz. Akiyama has first turn in the closed, and thus I think has a very good chance to level up the score. Let's talk about what the closed rule set is. Level 1 through 5, same plus plus wall combo. Standard decks must use one card per level, max of one rare. So the reason I think this is so first turn favored is because in general, and there's some disagreement on this, but in general, I think most players, higher end players, are on board that split level sets tend to be good for first turn because you can play your low level cards early and you can have a sweeper seeing a lot of low numbers on the field because both you and your opponent have been forced to play a bunch of low level cards. The second thing that favors first turn here is what is the highest level here? Level 5. Now, does level 4 have great sweepers? A 7-6-3-2, a 7-6-4-3 can be beautiful if they get their corner. But if you're expecting your, say, 7-6-3-2 to sweep in 4 and 7, it probably sweeps if it lands in 7, though not always, needs to be a little helped. And it doesn't necessarily sweep if it lands in 4. It will flip some things, but not necessarily that many things. On the other hand, on level 5, your 6-7-6-3 or your 6-7-6-2 needs very little help to sweep. And I'm going to guess, though I think reading Akiyama's hands is difficult, for me at least, I don't have a good feel for it, that Akiyama, if he's starting in 7, is likely to be running either 2-6-7-2, 3-6-7-2, 6-2-6-7, or 6-3-6-7. This makes sense to me as one of the ways to play this. You'll notice he's starting with a level 1. The question was, do you start with your level 1 and 5 as a center drop, which your cards can play around? Do you start with it as a weak corner? Or do you try to create some challenge for the opponent with a strong number facing out? I don't see the point to trying to create challenge. First turn, it's happy to see low numbers, and you can't know which specific challenges will be annoying for them. So I like the weak corner strategy more, but it also indicates to me that whatever card he wants to sweep with is going to be better, is facing towards this. And I think that card will be very hard for Turdz to dodge. So I think the split level thing tends to be good for first turn. I think having the max level be level 5 is also helpful for first turn. It's just a level where the best sweepers available are so much better than the best sweepers available on a lot of other rule sets, a lot of other levels. And same plus plus wall combo. The way to try to ameliorate this advantage would be to get rid of plus wall. And if you get rid of plus wall, lots of interesting things happen. Suddenly that 1-3-1-7, if 5 and 9 are taken up, it can land in 8 and actually be safe in a direction. And so there's a lot more tools for second turn to defend. So I think all this considered, normal first turn advantage is something like 50, 25, 25 in 100 games of, I used closed random trade, high level trade games as my sample. And I took about 300 games as my sample. And about 50% first turn wins, 25% ties, 25% second turn wins. I would assume this is a rule set that is clearly more beneficial for first turn than your normal closed rule set. So a really good chance for Akiyama to tie up the score here after Turdz's very convincing win in the Open. On the other hand, it is always a closed game. Now, the thing about that level 5, or the level 5s available, is they are just so good at sweeping that it's really difficult to dodge. And I wonder if that means that Turdz going in 3 makes more sense than usual. Okay. Turdz does the thing the hot, cool, close players do, where they say, I'm going to go next to your starter in a way where if you go next to your starter, I might have a lot of combo potential against it. And this makes some sense. I don't ever have a feel for it, but clearly some very good players do this in closed with some regularity. It is not at all in my toolbox, so I don't feel that equipped to talk about it much. And without being able to see the cards, it's hard for me to... I mean, you probably don't need to see the cards to understand this. The idea is, if Akiyama goes in 4, he risks lengthy combo chains. If he doesn't have a way to lock in, And if he does have a way to lock in, it's not like Turdz is that far behind. First turn usually locks in a card first. It's not the end of the world that they do here. I think something like that is the reasoning. On the other hand, and you'll note he also has a matching number facing towards 7. So he is also saying if there is an extensive combo chain here, it has a chance at least to be cut off early. Which I think is important because the reason I find these moves very uncomfortable is if I'm playing second turn, I don't want a huge combo chain. If they go in 4 and I combo and there's combos back or simply overpowerings and things line up into big overpowering chains, I don't want first turn to have last turn and hit me really hard on that combo chain. So to me, that strikes me as really uncomfortable. But I don't think I'm like right about this. I'm just saying why stylistically it does not feel comfortable to me. On second turn, I am not trying to create extensive combo chains. And there's a very good reason for that. You don't have last turn, but that doesn't mean it's always right. So I think I have a kind of stylistic over preference for caution. And here we are seeing, I don't know. I know everyone thinks aggressive means differently, so I'm going to use the word combative. Here we are seeing a more immediately combative approach. Do you have this? I'm going to attack it immediately kind of approach. And that's curious. Also, 5s facing out is a somewhat interesting set of numbers because the sweepers at the end are most likely to be 6, 7, 6s. I would be somewhat surprised if it was a 7, 7, 4 at the end, though it's possible. And I would be very surprised if it was like a 7, 6, 5, 4. Or what other cards are available here? 6, 6, 6, 3 or a 6, 6, 6, 2. I would be really surprised by these options. I think it's 6, 7, 6, 3 is most likely, and then 6, 7, 6, 2. Notably, Akiyama, I think, really smartly identified in the quarterfinals that 6, 7, 6, 2s were probably better than 6, 7, 6, 3s. I thought he did a really nice job there in the quarterfinals. I might have said semis. I meant quarters. And I would rank 7, 7, 4s as probably third most likely. That's interesting. Okay, so we've seen Akiyama's first corner, and we see that's a level 3. So Akiyama still has a quite low-level card, but he wanted to get rid of a card he could take back easily. He didn't want to interact with stuff, even though he could have locked in his card from 4. That's a curious move. Now, despite the prior game, I do not think he has multiple 1s facing down. So he's saying, I could interact with this. Like, clearly he could have played 6, 6, 1, 3, and 4. I could interact with this, but I really don't think you can interact with this. So I'm going to play to deny your interaction. Now, what would you do if you were Turdz here? I think if you have a nice setup move in 6, that can be one of the safer ways to play. Go 6, kind of induce 9, play 5 with nice lock-ins. They go 2 or 4, you go the other of 2 and 4, and as long as you're not comboed at the end, you tie. Is that true? I think that's true. So, like, I like the look of 6. 4 is scary to me. I think 9 is possible, but is sort of getting a less controlled version of 6. If you don't have a good setup in 6, but you have a good setup against lots of things they could put in 6, maybe you go 9, trying to induce 6, and then you can play 5 and get the same thing. But 6 seems the more controlled way to get it because you control what numbers are facing out, but you do need to have something to set up there. Yeah, I would find this difficult to play with Turdz. I do not have any feel at all for the setup we have here in closed. Partially because my closed experience of recent has been so many games starting in 5, or responding to starters in 5, that these kind of setups are just not ones I'm used to thinking about. So I'll be really curious to see what happens here. I think Akiyama's decision to go in 3 is a really interesting one. You do see this quite a bit. There was a game between Vid and Delhi in the TTAC finals, the last TTAC finals, TTAC 15, where you had some very similar starter. It was rotated a different way, but same idea. And Vid went far away, and I thought that made sense. It might have been with 3 cards played rather than 2, but I think it was 2. But Vid played in the far corner, just saying, because it looked like a position where Vid probably doesn't have a way to interact well with this, but it's not clear Deli does either. And so I thought Vid made a nice move there, and then Deli played the game great, and Deli ended up pretty sure winning that game. He did go on to win the event. I think he won that game. But I thought it was an interesting idea from Vid, and here we see a similar thing from Akiyama. Turdz goes 5. God, I don't like that at all. Now Akiyama has complete control of structures. It is very likely, to my eyes, that Akiyama has, say, 6-3, 6-7. And if he does, he probably has a corner card for 1. So he has 2 pretty good sweepers, whether he goes for the Z or the Q. Oh, one thing I was meant to talk about when I talked about bomb, when I started talking about the 5s facing out, is in a world where the big numbers you're targeting are 6s and 7s, you might think having 5s facing out is pretty good, because anything that's not a 6 or a 7 won't take it, and it's hard to play off. But specifically, 6-7-6s love seeing 5s dangling, because it usually gives them ways to take the numbers they couldn't take before. A 6-7-6-3, the 6 can take 7s due to the 3's help, but it can't take 6s, but seeing a 5 facing out helps it take 6s. And a 6-2-6-7 likes seeing the 5 facing out because it can plus wall it. It doesn't get a new capture, but it does get combo potential. So if Akiyama is running something like that, yeah. And now the card in 5 is Turdz's. Akiyama didn't have to flip it, so it's hard for Turdz to do one of those sliding setups where you go in one of 2 or 6. Say you go in 2, which would have to be weak to 3, and then you combo back in 6. I think you probably have to go 9 here. I think you go 9. Do we have much information about Akiyama's sweepers? And Akiyama found a way to get rid of his low-level card. Yeah, I think the series is going to be evened up here. I would be pretty surprised if Akiyama doesn't win this queue. This looks like it has kind of so much going for him. And Turdz has 3 cards left and his higher level 3 cards. But you want 5 to be Akiyama's. It's Turdz. You want, to have gotten one of the potential sweepers out of Akiyama's hand. You haven't. You want some indication that Akiyama's remaining cards are not good for the board, but they're very likely a corner card for 1 and a corner card for 9, and one of those corner cards is tridirectional. So I kind of think you want to go 9 with a high number out, not strong to bomb. So if you're choosing between 6-6-1-3 or 7-2-3-6, I think you choose 6-6-1-3. It is a lower number facing out, potentially a harder number to take for 6-3-6-7, but a lower number facing out. But you can't risk the combo potential because you just don't want to be lost immediately. On the other hand, if you have 2, then 9 has some real benefit because it can be hard for Akiyama to go 6 without flipping 5, and that combo chain actually really could benefit you. So there is some combo play. If you can force the flipping of 5, there's some combo play. So you need to have one of 2 or 6, and then you need to either place a 7 out from the other of 2 or 6, so the only way it's taken flips it and sets up combos through 5. Those positions are so dangerous because often if you go 2 like that, sometimes they can just go 9 and the game is over. Or I think you got to go 9 immediately and hope they don't have a way to play 6 that doesn't flip 5. And you got to have 2. Now, Turdz did play in 5, so there's a decent chance he has some combo potential. But I think this is just very, very good for Akiyama. I think we're very likely to see a tied game. There was a funny match. It was the TTAC, say 14 quarterfinals, I want to say. I think between Chickeny and Akiyama. And Chickeny went on to win. I think Akiyama won the Open and Chickeny won at least one close, but I'm not sure. So Akiyama has been knocked out and closed, I think, in both TTAC 14 and 15. because he won the Open against Deli in 15. I think he won the Open against Chickney in 14. And this one, his karma came back to beat Seto, who beat him in the Open but lost the 2 closed. But this is to say Akiyama has mostly been knocked out in closed, not in Open. Okay, well, we missed the last few moves. I was completely wrong. They both went for 7-7 sweepers. Yeah. But you can see Akiyama did have cards. He had 3-6-7-4 and 7-1-4-7. He did have cards that were really good in 1 and 9. And this, yeah, it's just really hard position for Turdz to hold. It doesn't look like Turdz had play in either 2 or 6. So we could say the move in 5 was bad, and I did say I didn't like it at the time. But also, this is just a really hard rule set. Yeah. Tough rule set. Akiyama evens up the score, and we will be headed to a decider in the Open Closed. Could very easily go either way. I do think this was very clearly a first turn favored rule set. So I would feel bad for Turdz if he lost at this point, given, he won the Open game and he lost a very difficult closed game on second turn. But I would also stress that Akiyama has been on the wrong side multiple times of winning the Open and having difficult closed matchups. The reason I brought up the Akiyama Chickney matchup was because it was one of the weirdest closed matchups I've ever seen, because every game it looked like someone was winning, and they just happened to have as their final card whatever number combination wouldn't sweep, and would beat almost most other things that were seen, or was just facing the wrong way. And just every game, just the final card came out and was like, oh, the one card that doesn't win here. And it was this sort of remarkable streak of those games. So I kept being like, okay, it's over. And then it was never over. Or it took a while to be over. So I was reminded of that because I was thinking, I think the only way Akiyama doesn't win this end game is if he just happens to have really weird facing cards at the end. But he didn't. He had very good cards for this end game. All right, I guess we'll end this video, and we'll see you for Game 3, a very tight match. And I do want to say, I do think this was one of the easier wins Akiyama could have gotten, but as I said, but I want to stress, Akiyama has been on the wrong side of closed luck a bunch of times in TTAC. It is not like he's getting insanely lucky over and over in closed. This is... his luck is regressing to the mean, I guess we'll say. Alright, tie game. I do tend to want the person who won the Open to win. So... but on the other hand, what I don't want is I don't like it when it's a double closed win over a single Open win. Like, when it's one Open and one closed over one Open, that feels fine to me. When, obviously, the win includes the only Open wins, that feels fine to me. But, Open versus double closed is always rough. And again, Akiyama has been on both sides of that, and he's been on the losing side of that more often than he's been on the winning side.